Okay, so again, we're talking about CBR because apparently they have the more politically minded writers over at CBR, and if you are a news source, I feel like it's fine to have political intention. It's fine to have political opinions, I guess is the word I was looking for. Just, I don't know, put a bigger disclaimer on something. It just seems I'm just taking issue with their political opinions, and it's my channel, so I have the right to do that. And this one's not even really a political opinion. This is a misinterpretation of the way things are. I had this conversation over on the main channel in an interview I did with comic book author R. Alan Brooks about, so Comicsgate and Gamergate are these things that in the major media outlets just get all of this negative press. By and large, I can kind of understand that because there have been some very high-profile issues with the communities of Gamergate and Comicsgate. And I need to preface this real quick with I do not identify as part of those groups of people. But I feel like there is something to be said about how they're being represented and how they feel like they should be represented. Which this article doesn't necessarily use those terms directly, but it's very clear that they're alluding to those groups of people in here. So the article that we are talking about is Ms. Marvel and Thor 4 highlights massive hypocrisy regarding the MCU's criticisms. So also need to preface this real quick. There might be spoilers in here. I honestly, if you haven't seen Ms. Marvel or Thor 4 at this point, then you're probably not super concerned with the conversation we're going to have. So thank you for tuning in, I guess. I also need to make a point that I should have made with Brooks, we just kind of ran out of time, is that Gamergate and Comicsgate, these are not titles that were given to these communities by these communities. They were given to these communities by media outlets or by specific people that then were adapted as a kind of meme, as a kind of trolley move. Not necessarily because they want to be associated with Watergate or any of those other big political scandals. That's just how we label scandals in our modern times. So the fact that they identify as a, quote, gate is not necessarily indicative of their negative attitudes in any way, just kind of, again, memey. So, yeah, we're just going to jump right into this. There's a couple of things that we need to highlight in here. I have the entire article in the notes just because I didn't know where to start and where to stop. I'm not going to read the entire article, but there are some things to note, and I'm going to try and keep them on the screen as we're talking about them. So first up, in the opening, I am going to read this opening paragraph just because this kind of lays out the density of the author. So one of the most interesting aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is how progressive it's gotten over the last few years. Some naysayers, though, have ignorantly chalked it up to agendas and forcing liberalism into art. However, it's simply Marvel Studios trying to tell more cosmopolitan stories, ones that are more diverse, inclusive, feminist, and overall instilling a sense of acceptance. All right, so there's a couple of things to unpack here. Very specifically, we're talking about how naysayers have, quote, chalked it up to agendas and forcing liberalism into art. To which their counterpoint to that is apparently by adding more what they refer to as diversity, inclusiveness, and feminism into their art. So their version of diversity, we understand that the version of diversity that is being referred to here is not actually diversity. Exactly. It is a form of diversity in that there are many people with different pigments in their skin, which most of the people who they call naysayers would say is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter what kind of plumbing you have between your legs. What matters is, can you tell compelling stories? If you want to insert somebody from your specific group of people that you identify with personally, that's fine as long as it's compelling, as long as it's quality storytelling, as long as there is a reason for that person to be there. It doesn't matter if there has to be a reason for the person to be there, even if they are a cisgendered, heterosexual, straight white male. Like, that is the thing that I think is getting lost in the rhetoric, is that every character needs to have a reason to exist. You can't just put a character on the page or on the screen because you feel like it and have the audience that you're trying to write this character for accept them. It doesn't matter who this character is, as long as they are a compelling and well-written character, it will be accepted. This has been, the examples of this are tenfold. They are all over the place. In this article, they come back to a number of times. They come back to Black Panther and how it's a big deal. And it was a big deal. It did make a lot of money. Specifically, they're saying that Black Panther is an example of equality, which I've made this argument. I don't know that I've made it necessarily on either of the channels before, but if you look at movie making as a whole, if you look at even the MCU as a whole, then yes, I can understand the argument of Black Panther being a pretty much exclusively black cast, black directed, written, produced, all of the, well, maybe not produced, but all of the, like, many of the key elements of this have to do with African-American actors or black actors, or however we're supposed to refer to people that identify as such. Yeah, in the larger conversation, absolutely it does a lot for diversity. In the movie itself, the movie in and of itself is not diverse, because it is pretty exclusively black actors, black directors, so on, the same things I just said. So not inherently bad, obviously not inherently bad, because the movie did super well, because it was a very well done movie. Ryan Coogler really knocked it out of the park with that movie. It was fantastic. I'm super excited about Wakanda Forever because I want to see how he can adapt with that curveball that he was thrown. So, and then, you know, the other curveball of COVID. So it's just... So in that same vein, though, being as they use Black Panther in this article to talk about, look at how much money it made, and look at how much money Captain Marvel and Eternals made. And these movies are doing great things, so the hypocrisy is glaring. Well, Eternals, I would venture, is a little bit of a piggyback in this statement, because it didn't make that much money. It did pretty well, but it's Marvel in the 2020s. It's gonna do well. Did it do well as other movies that came out around it? No, it got spanked a little bit, and it's been eaten alive in reviews from not just professional critics, but the fans as well. Captain Marvel, the argument there is that it was it was billed as anyway required reading for the Infinity Saga. So we were led to believe, if we didn't watch Captain Marvel, that we were going to miss out on something in the Infinity movies. That didn't turn out to be true, but we didn't know that at the time, so that's kind of how it made $1 billion. It also was a pretty good movie. I'm not trying to discredit the fact that Captain Marvel was, you know, well done by and large. I feel like Brie Larson was an interesting choice for the role, but she did fairly well. And then the article kind of evolves into, now we're talking about criticisms of Thor and Miss Marvel, and how there's too much humor. People are saying there's too much humor in them. People are saying that, the origins of some characters don't add up. Cameos felt superficial, etc., etc., etc. They say that these criticisms are only being lobbed at modern, like within the last 5-6 years, modern Marvel movies, and not the original slew of Iron Man and Thor and so on and so forth. No, that's been the argument that a lot of fans have made since Jump Street. This has not changed. so the fact that they're trying to make it look like only Thor and Miss Marvel are getting these criticisms is a little very disingenuous. I being a part of a community that enjoys this kind of content, I haven't seen that change. There has been a very loud minority of fans that have said, I can't get into these Marvel movies because the tone doesn't seem right. Hasn't seemed right since the first movie because too many jokes, too many fart jokes, just all of this childish humor that is for the masses is not for me. And that's kind of what the, quote, naysayers have been saying all along. So to try and make it sound like only Thor and Miss Marvel are getting it, you're obviously trying to sell an agenda. Like that, there's no two ways about that. And then that moves into He-Man and She-Ra, which they say, quote, deviated from the all-white testosterone-driven nature of the 80s. That is what He-Man was created to be. It is not to say that the IP can't evolve, but when you try and ham-fist that evolution through without any sort of like adjustment phase, you just all of the sudden, this is how it's gonna be because we say so. That's the thing that is not the fact that it was Tila driven. It was the fact that it was billed to the fans as a He-Man series, and then all of the sudden, He-Man was in 3 episodes of the 10. It just didn't add up. As far as the She-Ra thing goes, that's probably a whole video unto itself, and that plenty of people have made more eloquently than I at this point. But the one point I do want to make about the She-Ra stuff is there's a reason why it got canceled. It wasn't getting the viewership. There is a reason why there are currently two different He-Man series on Netflix. Is because the first one didn't really get as much viewership as they wanted to, so they tried to do another one that was much more gentle in its evolution, I guess I could say, that was also more geared towards kids, which is what He-Man was originally supposed to be anyway. So if you're gearing it towards a new audience and you have new things going in it, then it's gonna be given a little bit more of a pass than if you just say, this is for the audience that viewed it originally, but we're gonna change everything about it so that they don't like it. That's where that sits. And so I will give credit to CBR that yes, in the final paragraph, they do acknowledge that just because these properties are trying to be as, quote, inclusive as possible, does not give them a pass, does not mean that they can just do whatever they want. So there's at least a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel here in that they're recognizing that these shows are not doing as well, even if it's kind of, you have to read between the lines to get this. These shows are not doing as well as they're trying to present them as doing here in their very one-sided article. But I guess that is the nature of the major media stuff. That is, it's everywhere now. We're taking sides and it sucks, and I don't like that. I think that these conversations need to be had on equal footing on the same platforms, and it's just not the way things are going. And honestly, this was just, again, me rambling about just blatant hypocrisy and obvious lies that I think are being presented to us in ways that are trying to hide themselves, and that's not conducive to a healthy conversation. So that's counterpoint to create a healthy conversation, I would hope, anyway. Let me know how wrong I am. Let me know how stupid I am down in the comments section. I'm here for it. We will have a conversation, whether you like it or not. Thank you very much, nerds, for joining me. If you have thoughts, again, there's a comment section down low. We'll see you in the next one, I guess. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.